Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of The Yakking Show. And as always, we have interesting guests for you. Today will be no exception. But first, let's introduce co-host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
Oh, Peter, I'm doing great. Thank you. And thank you also very much for tuning in to our show. We so appreciate having you. And Peter, I am so thrilled today to interview this lady. We have known each other for many, many years now, and I have such respect for the work that she does. Welcome to the show, Thea Trussler. Hello, Thea. How are you?
Hi, Kathleen. So delighted to see you. We're chatting across the puddle, and I'm excited about this. Thank you
Now,
so much for inviting me.
Thea used to be one of the local gals here in where I live in Canada. She is now relocated to beautiful Ireland. I'm so envious. Good for you, Thea, to be living your dream. But without further ado, let me just introduce you all to Thea. Thea is the owner of Pet Assistance Training Skills. This is a company that offers specialized dog training to support children and adults with anxiety disorders as well as autism and ADHD. She's also a master trainer for internationally accredited programs such as mental health first aid and applied suicide intervention skills training. But today, she's here to yak with us about the benefits of having dogs in our lives. And I can't wait to delve into this topic. So, Thea, you've done a radio interview, and I was absolutely blown by this, saying that humans share 85% of their DNA with dogs. Can you please elaborate on that?
Isn't that just amazing? I was
Mhm.
gobsmacked when I I heard that. But think about it. It's over 40,000 years that we have been side by side with dogs. So during that time, we were on the same hunting routes. We slept beside each other. We ate the same food. We had a symbiotic relationship around hunting. And as that relationship has evolved over the millennia, there have been evolutionary changes in dogs that are not found in wild dogs. So,
Okay.
one thing is so wolves and coyotes and fox, they can't wiggle their eyebrows.
Oh,
Yeah, go figure. But dogs have that great way of expressing themselves, communicating with us with their eyebrows. They'll raise their eyebrows if
yeah.
they're okay, I'm really hungry, or do the playful thing, I want to go for, I can't say it because I got a Great Dane puppy here. Walkies. He's already gone to the beach for the day. But that evolution has gone through three phases. We're just entering into this new phase. So the first part was, when we were tribal people, and then moving into the second phase where dogs were seen as sport dogs, so for hunting, for sport, also for eating. I mean, for actual participating in having the deer on your table, um, and protection. So that's always been a big thing. Different dog breeds, like one of the oldest dog breeds is the Mastiff,
Mhm.
and they're big, big boys, right, and girls, and they were there for protection. And dogs have changed over the years as we've bred them for certain purposes. Now we're into just, I mean, in the last century, it's very new, around service dogs and assistance dogs.
Mhm.
So the first was for visually impaired people, and that came about after the war.
Mhm.
So there was so much with the gas in World War One.
Yeah.
So needing to have some sort of guidance other than holding onto someone's arm, and that's where they saw the potential for training dogs to be a guide dog. So from there, and that began in England. From there, looking at different things that dogs could do and assist us. So this third phase is we are just testing all the things that dogs can do because they are so eager to please. That is, we need each other. That symbiotic relationship. We depend upon each other. Dogs would not fare well. Most of them wouldn't fare well on their own out there in the wild. So things like this doesn't have to do with health, but it blew me away. They have bed bug sniffers.
Really?
Yeah, go figure. But in terms of the health aspects, the sniffing element, and they've got like 400 times our ability to smell.
Yeah.
So they can smell cancer for cancer detection. They can smell with diabetics, the ketone changes, and alerting people. They can alert prior to an epileptic seizure. So those immediate responses to the olfactory system kicking in and the dog realizing that they need to do something. And then with regards to service and assistance dogs, I was so blessed to work with National Service Dogs in Canada. And National Service Dogs, it's almost 30 years now, and they created the autism program. So the autism program, it's remarkable how many children are being diagnosed nowadays, considering, just in the last 30 years, it's really come to the forefront. And that's primarily in developed countries. So dogs have been trained to help with the calming aspect with a child on the spectrum. So there's that, but how they know that a child is about to escalate is they can smell the cortisol levels change.
Really?
And so they react and can be preemptive if a child, what we call disassociating. So if a child is disassociating, they're going inward, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion. Prior to the explosion, the dog will come over and get the child to refocus. Also with many of the autism assistance dogs, children are tethered to the dog for safety purposes, and the parent is on a leash because they're very prone to bolting.
Yeah.
Depending upon, each child is different, but so often there's a safety risk and no sense of safety. So they'll fly out into traffic, they'll go running towards strangers, they'll get lost in a crowd. So when I was doing testing, going out, actually the entire breadth of Canada, going and visiting dogs to do testing, particularly the first 3 years, making sure that the dog was well cared for, but also that their skills were being kept up, that there were no deviations, or they weren't getting sloppy, not being good citizens, because that can happen. They can unwind quite easily. So this one dog, the child was not having a good day. So the dog had smelt the cortisol, went into action, and I'm witnessing all this. It's in a school environment. The child laid down to have a fit, and the dog came over and laid on their body. And that kicks in the parasympathetic nervous system. So like the weighted blankets as a calming element, or a nice long hug also helps. But your dog, and so the child will sometimes, start playing with them, holding them, or just lying there and going, oh, okay, I'm coming down off the ceiling. And it's usually because they're overstimulated. Now, after that session, we knew the child needed a timeout and just to rest, but we still need to go through some of the testing. So I ended up playing the role of being the child. And we were out walking along the curb down the road, and I was intentionally trying to pull towards the traffic. And this dog, like, I'm not a small girl, just anchored his feet, and I couldn't budge him from where he was standing. He was just like, okay, and holding that space and keeping me safe.
Wow.
It just, incredible skills that save lives. It's not just I have a puppy, and that children are able to integrate into mainstream schools. And
Right.
it's also an option for them to um, be included in so many things, because the other kids, so often they love the dog, but they've all been trained. Now, I would go into a school before the dog would be deployed with the child and explain we can't look at them, we can't touch them, we can't talk to them. I know that's really difficult, but say hi to Mark and give him a high five if he wants to. And all of a sudden, Mark is the cool kid in school, and he's like so
Yeah.
excited about being included then.
Right.
So there's that natural
Wow.
of the endorphins coming through.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Yeah, you sort of touched on it, but why are dogs so uniquely suited to helping people with both mental and physical disabilities? Because let me just tell you why I'm asking a question. Certain other animals are very good at a limited range of tasks. For instance, giant rats have been trained to detect landmines, and they do a tremendously
Mhm.
good job with that. Miniature horses, any horse, but practicalities dictates miniature horses are better suited, are good for hospital visits and
Mhm.
also calming fractious children. And miniature horses can go in the house. They're harder to house train than a dog, but and cats have a role, and cats are actually a lot more intelligent and trainable than most people believe. I've seen cats trained to do all sorts of things,
Mhm.
but dogs seem to be able to adapt to so many different circumstances to help humans. So what is it that makes them so uniquely suited?
I think it is that long relationship that we've
Okay.
had. And I believe that every dog is a therapy dog to one degree or another. It's
Hmm.
just most of them are working pro bono. So as they're trying to learn our language, and dogs can learn a language up to well, there's one border collie that has the language capacity of a 5-year-old. Most dogs will understand between the ages of 2 and 3 with a toddler, the
Yeah.
language. As I said, I couldn't do the WALKIE, and soon he'll be
Right.
able to spell. Um, but because dogs are trying to figure out how to be a part of your pack and how can I help? And, even simple things like you've got a cold and you're on the couch. The dog's energy seem, well, many dogs, not all dogs, will want to come over and go like, what can I do for you? Can I cuddle with you? Can I just be beside you? And their eagerness to learn and making a game out of it. So when
Hmm.
I am training, I train pet dogs to do service and assistance skills. It's not for public access. It's because there is such huge, long wait lists and just not enough dogs to go around that if within the home, if the dog can help out on certain things, that's grand. So we
Yeah.
make games to engage the dog, and not every dog is suitable. They have to
Sure.
want to do this.
Right. Which
Hmm.
Well,
actually brings me to my neck.
Your question, yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a great segue. So, which breeds are more suitable for certain conditions than others? Because I noticed that, you know, yeah, I mean, when you're seeing like guide dogs, they seem to
mhm,
be the retrievers. Am I right about that?
Labradors and retrievers, yeah.
yeah,
Labradors and retrievers versus, maybe you can touch on that.
yeah. So yes, Labradors and Golden Retrievers are the go-to. With National Service Dogs, I was introduced to. They were trying to push forward um, the the title of a working or a service dog without talking about breeds,
Hmm.
because they were doing a lot of breeding between the lab and the retriever. So labs are like, what can I do? What can I do? And retrievers are like, love me, love me.
Hmm.
So to have a combination that's still doing all the things that you want and not too much of an extreme, like catching balls and so on with retrievers, oh my goodness, or labs in particular. Now, there's also the desire because of allergens,
Hmm.
looking at labradoodles and standard poodles. So
Hmm.
the thing is that they need to have dogs that are large enough to be able to do some of the skills that are necessary.
Okay.
So it depends upon who you're talking to. I didn't see a lot of success with the poodles, even though they're brilliant dogs, but their personality sometimes just they didn't want to
Yeah.
do it.
Oh,
And they had their own agenda. And now my working with other dogs. So I've got. Well, there's a Jack Russell. So Jack Russell's people are like, what? But
really?
this woman that I'm working with, she has MS and PTSD, and she's epileptic. So she's got so many things, and she lives alone.
Wow.
So this dog was a rescue, which is brilliant.
Hmm.
There's so many dogs, and I find rescues are like, I'll do anything. Just can I stay, please? So this dog, we had to teach how to turn on her watch. It looks like a watch, but it's a help button. And so making a game out of it, starting with putting a treat underneath the the watch itself while she's wearing it on her wrist. So the dog would be poking at it, trying to get the treat, and that would turn on the help alert, which would go to some magical place out there, and she would have an ambulance show up. Then we were training him to do fetching the medicine bag, and she only left the medicine bag in two places. Her place was fairly tiny, so in her room or in the living room. And if she was to fall, so we had to recreate situations. And at first, the dog's like, "Yeah, mom is fine. What are you doing?" He couldn't smell anything that was untoward.
Right.
But we taught him as a part of the game, okay, go find. And it was the pouch. So using just one word. If you're training, don't use any more than a 2-syllable command, ideally, so that they can lock that in as a part of their 2 to 3 year old vocabulary amounts. Then there was another little one. Now, she looks like a miniature poodle, but there was some lab in there, but she was teeny tiny. And her mom, dealing with PTSD and ME, so chronic fatigue. And we had to do the same things in terms of getting the pouch, teaching her to lie on top because she was tiny. She could lie right on the chest here when the woman would try and get out of her wheelchair sometimes just to move onto the couch, and she would collapse. And then finding her husband, so a huge place that they had, and his office was on the other side of the home. And so Phoebe would go bolting down to find Daddy and bring him back. Now,
Ah.
just before Christmas, Phoebe literally saved her life. She collapsed. Phoebe ran to get the medicine pouch first, then laid on her chest for a little bit, and then went and got Dad, and then came back
Ah.
on her chest again. And the husband called me, and I'm like, oh my God, like that was critical thinking process that's in there. Like, she is a shining star. This is not something that is typical, but she is so bonded with her owner and the eagerness to do things. So um, some dogs, like a basset hound, probably not. I had a basset hound. They're like, yeah, that's too much work, and they're not the swiftest. So certain dogs just are not ones that I would see working with, but
Sure.
I don't negate it. If people want me to go and test their dog, I go and test their dog.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting because my stepdaughter has a son of 11, and they think he might be autistic. He's certainly got, and he is definitely dyslexic, and he's not doing very well at school. So the therapist suggested they get a companion dog for him,
Mhm.
and she's got a Springer Spaniel cross Labrador for him.
Oh,
And I said, Spaniel, I've had Spaniels, and they can be good or they can be difficult. And
yeah.
this dog is actually doing well. but unfortunately, the son doesn't want to go to training with the dog. It's still a young dog. It's not fully
Mhm.
trained. So the mother's taking it for training, which I think is somewhat defeating the object. But anyway, we're hoping for a good result. But that's an unusual one, a spaniel cross
Yeah, I
Labrador.
actually
Yeah.
like that. And in
Hmm.
terms of the training piece, the children, it's too difficult in that kind of environment. We don't
Uh,
train with the children
oh, don't you?
unless they really, really want to.
Okay, so
So,
that's
yeah,
so that's
it's
not a
good.
negative.
No, no, it's actually very good. Now, the things that I encourage people to do for the bonding is to always have the child feed the dog,
Yep.
doing the routine around that, going to bed where the dog sleeps, ideally near the child, whether it's in a crate or on the bed. And some children deal with nightmares and teaching the dog then how to intervene during a nightmare that would be safe. So turning on
Hmm.
lights or pulling blankets off, or if the child wouldn't reach out and hit the dog, to go and snuggle with the child
Hmm.
and try and engage that way. So,
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So, Thea, what you've spoken of a few, but what other mental or physical conditions are suitable for a dog to be part of the treatment?
Well, the National Service Dogs were also the first in Canada to have a PTSD program. And so we worked with
Okay.
veterans, post traumatic stress disorder. We worked with veterans and first responders. And the it was a game changer for so many of them, absolute game changer. They would quite often end up with other physical disabilities
Hmm.
because of the PTSD. Like the adrenal system just gets taxed, and it's a domino effect from that. So training the dog, that opens up the world for them, and they're feeling safer because the focus is on the dog, not on them anymore
That's
if
right.
they go out shopping. And if they're disassociating, again, that the dog knows that and they nudge
Hmm.
them out of that, and the person can just focus on their dog. Um,
Mm.
Now, as far as medical alert dogs, those skills as well. So a lot of
Yep.
diabetic ones. I think it's Breslau, that they had diabetic alert dog training there. I don't remember the
Wow.
school right now. Done some cognitive pruning since then.
Right.
And then in engaging them in hospitals for additional elements like the cancer sensing as
Yeah.
a part of specialized clinics. There's just so many different
Different
health
thing.
benefits.
Mm.
So I'm just
I
curious. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just going to say, see, I read recently that there's a program, I'm not sure, I think it's somewhere in one of the southern states in the USA, where they are taking rescue dogs from shelters into the prisons and making prisoners. And some of these are murderers and
Mhm.
serving life sentences, making them responsible for a certain dog. And the dog is
Mhm.
brought, I'm not sure if it's every day, but frequently. And apparently it's having a hugely beneficial effect on most of not all, but on most of the prisoners. So that's another good one.
It
Right.
is amazing because they're in that program. We were trying to introduce into a woman's correctional facility, um, and because the unconditional love, and then that reward of the dog's energy being focused on that person all the time, and a lot of prisoners have learning disabilities, and so they're learning an actual skill that can be then translated into the public when
Right.
they go back as a part
Okay.
of their potential new employment options.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Mhm.
good.
So what
Kathleen.
really fascinates me is what we talked about earlier about how dogs can sniff out cancer, or how they're trained to come to someone's assistance when they experience anxiety. That is just absolutely mind-blowing. But what I'm interested in knowing is, how do you go about training a dog to, say, sniff out cancers, or, anything else?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So they have these little sniffer pots that would have the scent of an illness.
Really?
And yeah, and so teaching the dog to alert, just think about police dogs. I mean,
Mhm.
Hudson and Rex is a big one here in Ireland. Everybody loves the Canadian shows. And Rex would sniff something and then go off and try and find the person. So the same, the manhunter dogs that are out there. So sniffing that and then being given a reward once they sniff that, and then they put out 3 or 5 different containers, and if the dog sniffs the correct one and alerts to it, they're given a reward for that. And so that's how the sniffing is done.
Really?
Yeah, it's just amazing, and it's a game for them. They love it.
Mm.
And what
Yeah.
about
Wow.
something like a child with ADHD? How are they, how are they trained to help calm this child down? What is the process that a trainer goes through to teach that dog?
So one of the things that we would teach the parents first is um, having the child saying to your child, "Okay, Mark, um, go to your dog. Susie needs your attention right now," and that would get him off of a track, because it's almost like a cul-de-sac. They get looped into a certain thought process and they can't let it go, and it winds them up. So being able to divert them to something that they really love. The dog will also go over and do nudges or leans, or it happens all the time with my Great Dane Fergal. He directs me where he wants me to go. So he'll be sort of nudging me in a certain direction. And we train to do that, but I didn't train him to do that. It's usually what his agenda is, like I want to go for a walk or I want dinner or whatever. So we can train that as well. And then they will snuggle up if the child is sitting down, even if they're in a tantrum, and the dog will go over, and we talk about visits where it's putting deep pressure on maybe the child's shoulder or on their knee or on their arm, depending on how they're sitting. And just that redirects the energy, as well as starts kicking in that parasympathetic nervous system. There's
Fascinating.
lots of treats involved at the
Interesting. Wow.
beginning.
Oh, yes.
I tell my clients, it's like a slot machine.
Right.
Thea, dogs live far shorter lives than we do. So take a child of 5 or 6 who gets a trained dog of maybe 2. He or she are only going to have that dog for 10, 12, at the absolute outside 15 years, right? What happens when the dog dies naturally or has to be put down? What effect does that have on the child?
Well, that's a huge thing. And with National Service Dogs, they had been around for so long that working with certain clients that they had to move through dogs as the dogs retired.
Oh,
So they wouldn't have a dog out there working past the age of 10.
okay.
The dog, there's the choice of keeping the dog in the home and bringing in another service dog. Or there's so many people that want to bring in those dogs and take in the retirees. And so they're not euthanized at the end. And they live a loving life like a family pet.
Okay, so that's a very warm separation because the person, be it child or adult, knows that the dog is going to have a good life. They might not know how long that's going to last away from them or perhaps still with them. Okay. I was just concerned that if the dog lived out its natural life with its patient, that abrupt ending could be traumatic for the
Yeah.
patient. Okay, so
And
that's
sadly, we did lose dogs
of
to
course.
illness,
Yeah.
and it being very sudden and having to go in. And so I was the mental health coordinator, going in and supporting the family through that
Mm.
process and bringing another dog in as soon as possible. It is a part of life. It's a teaching moment, even though
Sure.
it's a hard one, but it is a teaching moment for the entire family.
And Thea, I just wanted to ask this because there are people that are going to be asking this or wondering about this and asking that very question. What do you say to those people that believe that using dogs or any other animal for that matter is actually being cruel?
Mhm.
What do you say to those people?
Well, as talking about our evolution and the symbiotic relationship, dogs really, for the most part, want to be a part of the pack. And so the
Mhm.
family is the pack. They want to have a job within that unit because we all need to belong. So they want to figure out how, through language and training and so on. The dogs are not tethered up all day. Like they get their play moments. So when they're in jacket, it's like a business suit. It's all business. And then you take their jacket off and it's like, woohoo, let's party. So they're not cruelly kept. They're such an essential, critical part of the family. Working with a few different organizations and going in and checking on the welfare of the dog. So until the retirement or death of the dog, the organization would own the dog. So the legalities of owning the dog. So if there was any cruelty, and that sadly had happened in the past where we had to go in and apprehend a dog, but the close contact of going and visiting these dogs and any veterinarian that is signed up with the dog, we would get all the copies of the vet, whatever it was going on, whether it's just shots, also monitoring weight. And Labradors, bless them, they look at a cookie and they gain weight, kind of like me. So monitoring that they're at the best health at any given time and that they are having playtime, going on vacations, the whole bit. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think I like to use the same argument I use about horses being used for sport, that if it wasn't for horses and dogs being valuable to humans, there would be far fewer of them around. And in the
Mhm.
case of horses, there would be virtually none other than
Mhm.
in the wild because horses are expensive to keep. So
Yes.
I'm very comfortable on balance by saying that having dogs and horses and cats working and being companions to humans is good for them and good for
Mhm.
their species.
Mhm.
So yeah. Thank you for that, Thea.
Thank
Quick
you.
one for you. We will have a lot of dog owners avidly watching this episode and listening to what you're saying. Can you give us one tip for our audience of dog owners, particularly, that they could start doing today that would make their relationship with their dog a little better and lead to a happier life for their dog?
Well, engaging in games, whether you want a certain outcome. So we teach dogs to do the visit where they're putting their chin on. That's the first step by holding a treat in your hands and holding it on your lap. So
Hmm.
the dog's like, I know it's in there, nudge, nudge, nudge. And then, so yay, and then they get the treat. So making games and making it fun. And who doesn't want to have those big brown eyes looking up at you? Or my Dane has blue eyes looking up at you and telling, I love you. It makes, we send back the endorphins back and forth. So all the feel good stuff, the serotonin, etc., rises the same as when you're in love. You see
Hmm.
your dog, you have those same rushes of the good stuff going on as they do with you. So the more time you spend with your dog, the more they will learn and be a partner in life with you.
Oh, beautifully said. Thank
Thanks.
you, Thea.
Lovely. Thank you, Thea.
We are almost out of time, Thea, but how do people contact you? And also, we understand you have a podcast. Please tell us about that.
I do. I have a podcast called A Woman About a Dog. And that the little sideline to that is that my partner had, or he's part of a syndicate, horse racing. So we're into
Okay.
horses. And their syndicate is called A Man About a Dog. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, but I'm the alpha bitch. So I had to just do a little funny spin off
Oh,
from that.
good. Clever, clever, clever.
A woman about a dog. and that's on Spotify.
Okay.
And you can contact me through my website, which is Pet Assistance Training. .com. And then my email is petassistancetraining@gmail.com. I've just rebranded, so sorry on the whoop. So those two avenues. I'm on Facebook as well, under Pet Assistance Training. And I'm very open to people contacting me. It doesn't matter where they are around the globe, and just doing like a coaching online, just talking them through some of the things that perhaps their dog could do, or if they have any sorts of questions.
Great.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And to our listeners, audio listeners, all those contact details will be in the description on whatever platform you are listening to this on. So from me, thank you so much, Thea. That was really, really good. I've been a dog owner and dog lover just about all my life. I was actually named after a dog. Can you believe it? But we won't go into that right now. No, I was named after my father's bull terrier when he was serving with the British Army in India before World War II.
Oh
So,
my.
so when I came along,
you
didn't know that. When
I
I came
didn't.
along some years later, that had to be my name. Well, my mother wanted Margaret, but I ended up being a boy, not a girl. So she lost out, and I ended up being named after a dog. So that's it. Anyway, thank you. That's enough for me.
Oh,
Back
Thea,
to you,
thank you
Kathleen.
so much for being on our show today. We so appreciated having you. And thank you all so very much once again for tuning in. And if anyone is interested in being on our show, and if you're an expert in health, we want to hear from you. All you need to do is visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab and fill out a short application form. We'd love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.